Jaeden, I was fuming today, fuming. And I love AI. I love all things about it. I'm like, what model is this? This is great. Grok. Jaeden, you and I have had a lot of interesting conversations about Grok. You, I think a few months ago, were all in on Grok. And certainly from a benchmark perspective, absolutely. However, you started to veer away when it started to do some things that just didn't line up with your, I would say, personal and family ethics, if that's a fair way to describe it. And now the news coming out today, Gene, that you were just talking about, that has gotten a lot of people riled up is that, everybody has been understandably saying, Grok, what are you doing? These deep fake nudes of kids or of unconsenting women, and let's just call it what it is. It's unconsenting women and unconsenting kids. What is going on? And everybody sort of expected, like, okay, maybe this is the moment where Elon's like, all right, well, maybe we shouldn't have like a Nazi kind of thing, or maybe this is, and instead the news out today, Jaeden, is all they're doing is making it behind the paywall. So in other words, like, a lot of people can use X for free. Obviously, most people do, but there are subscription tiers. They start very low. I think it's like $3, $8, and $40. And then there's like business things. So behind a paywall can be a very low amount of money. But if you scroll X, and if your algorithm goes off the rails, or maybe this is your algorithm, all of a sudden you'll see just horrific things on there. Jaeden, when you saw that, how does it make you think about Grok, about Elon? What's the perspective from your household?
Okay, so yeah, like you mentioned, I was the biggest advocate of Grok. Spoiler alert, I'm a very like free speech kind of guy. I didn't like a lot of the guardrails and the babysitting from OpenAI. So when Grok came out, I was like, value proposition, I accept. Let the AI say whatever it wants. I think it's very different for an AI to say whatever it wants and generate images of whatever it wants. Completely different ballparks. Regardless, yeah, it was basically my number one model. I recommended it to everyone, and I basically stopped using it once they rolled out like the sexy anime girl embedded into the Grok app. And then I'm like, my wife and I, like everyone in my family, we all have like the Grok app, and I'm like, hey, like, ask Grok this, and she's like, what's this anime girl thing on there? And I'm like, oh great, like, and like my kids like want to get a bedtime story, and I'm like, okay, like I guess we just go back to OpenAI. So that's basically when I pulled away from it, and of course they've kind of went down a crazy path on that. So, I mean, I hope they fix it. Who knows where the recovery is on this? I will say a couple interesting things about this whole story. Number one, yeah, he like basically Elon Musk, Grok, they sort of went the same route with the images that they went with text. That was their issue. OpenAI went with guardrails on text, guardrails with image. And to be fair, Sam Altman is kind of copying Elon in a sense that he's unguardrailing the text. He's like, yeah, now you can have erotica in ChatGPT text. I'm like, ah, great. Are we on a slippery slope there too? But for now, the images on ChatGPT are still guardrailed, so you're not gonna be able to, generate explicit images over there. So that's good. I'm still on OpenAI. If they change that, I'll probably have to go move to Claude. But in any case, so I think this is a bad decision. It makes it basically radioactive for enterprise, radioactive for families, like just large chunks of people that can't use these tools. However, obviously, there's probably a bunch of users that like that, I guess. They're picking up those users. You got to pick and choose where you're getting users from, I guess. One thing that I will say that is interesting in relation to all of this, Elon did tweet, and it feels kind of like a little too little too late or whatever, but he did tweet a few days ago saying basically, if anyone is abusing the Grok image generation tool, then you will you're gonna have penalties just like anyone else making like illegal content online, basically. So the content restrictions that are, the law, basically, I think the ones that were really abhorrent was people would generate, like they had some issues generating pictures of like minors or whatever. What I will say is, I think in that regard, I don't know how guardrails work on these image generators, but like basically the people could, if you can generate explicit content, you can try to get it to make it look like a person's younger. Like, I don't really know how it all works. I don't know how you would stop it. I basically just don't think you should be using these AI models for that at all. But I mean, that's just me. In any case, Elon Musk is saying, look, there still are laws. If you're creating illegal content, like you're going to get in trouble. Now, how do you police that in a world with millions of anonymous Twitter accounts? I think that's impossible. And so they went to paywalling it. And I think there's two things that happen with paywalling it. I know a lot of people will say like, oh, paywalling it, what's that going to do? Like, you could still have no guardrails. I think I'm assuming they're going to put some guardrails on because they're getting sued and like investigated by every country in the world now. So the guardrails should go up, which I'm happy about. But a really important thing happens is when you only open that up to paid users, the image generation, every person that generates an image, not only is it their name, it's not an anonymous account, it's tied to a credit card. And so what that means is if you generated an image that you shouldn't have, you can get investigated, and basically like your credit card, your personal banking details are there. And so if you got to pass that off to a regulator, like if you're creating illegal content, you are actually going to get in trouble for it. So like I see the direction, but yeah.
No, okay. So, and Jaeden, I think this is a really interesting and more nuanced point than, me just flame throwing the internet this morning around this. So I appreciate that perspective. I also always like it because you and I, see the world very differently in certain ways and see the world very similarly in other ways, which is why I always love these conversations with you. And in this particular regard, I do see sort of like this point of like, okay, no, if it's paywalled, then there's some, accountability and responsibility for people who are creating let's call it illegal content or content, especially in the EU and the UK, which are coming in very, very strong. In fact, what did it say? Hold on. Let me just read two kind of quick quotes on this. The British Prime Minister called the office called this move insulting to victims and pointed out the obvious. That simply turns an AI feature that allows the creation of unlawful images into a premium service. That's one thing. This is in response to the story today. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is the EU, which obviously is way more careful. They said paid subscription, non-paid subscription. We don't want to see such images. It's as simple as that. And the EU has ordered X to retain all internal documents related to Grok until the end of 2026. Okay, so this is the interesting thing about free speech versus, I don't even know what the is on the other side of that, kind of a guardrail or something like that. Sure, and in one hand, I agree with that because, Jaeden, this is a slippery slope. Now, what I really love about this conversation right now is, first of all, that it's not about the AI. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about humans and human behavior, and it's about what we want to protect and guardrail and what we don't. So, Jaeden, I think you and I were probably on the same side early on, right? Remember in 2023 when everybody was going before Congress and all that kind of stuff, Sam Altman and probably Dario was there. I don't really remember. But this idea where they were saying, yes, we're going to be super careful, all that kind of stuff. But that really differed from what the EU is doing, which is, and certain states wanted to do, which was, hey, we're not even going to let these, big AI labs create this thing until they XYZ. Now, I think you and I were on the same side of like, no, it's on what people produce with AI. Don't stop the technology. That's a very dangerous precedent, right? It just doesn't work in free speech, and it doesn't work with technology. So I think we were both on the same side there. On this side, and I know you're not putting a position out there, but it's an interesting kind of straw man or steel man to put out there, which is, okay, what if we say this is paid? So if you are going to quote unquote break the law, that's on you. In the same way, if you want to shoot your gun at somebody, that's breaking the law. If you want to blah, blah, blah. But where I think this is probably different is it feels a little more of negative externality, meaning like there's a reason you can't smoke within 20 feet of a school, right? There's a reason why certain drugs are outlawed, even though all you're doing is kind of like harming yourself. There's a reason for these laws, even though they only sort of impact you, because you can be on X and be a paid subscriber, and I could go out and say, hey, create these images of a minor, and everybody will see it. Now, will that get me in trouble? In theory, yes. If pre-AI, if I went on Reddit and had child pornography, and by the way, I hate this fact that now I have a thing out there that says if I have child pornography, but if a person put child pornography on Reddit, that person's going to get flagged, like hunted down essentially. But we are no longer in that reality. We're in a reality where it's been completely normalized, especially on X, which is the single biggest social media platform out there, that people are putting these things out there. So the dam has broken on it, and there's a very easy solution. And I don't mean technically completely easy, but just putting guardrails on image models is complicated, as we saw when Google's, I can't remember what Google's original image generators were called, but when they sort of got historical inaccuracies because they were trying to be too quote unquote woke and things like that. So it's not the easiest thing in the world, but there's a giant guardrail, which is don't create nude images of children, that he could just create and put into this. And that's a very simple system prompt. Why isn't he doing it, Jaeden?
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing that I'll say in regards to all of this is like there's kind of two buckets on it. So here's the argument that he and other people are kind of making on X right now. There's someone that said, Some people are saying Grok is creating inappropriate images. That's like blaming a pen for writing something bad. A pen doesn't decide what gets written, the person holding it does. Grok works the same way. You can what you get depends a lot on what you put in. Think about it. And then Elon Musk replied, anyone using Grok to make illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they uploaded illegal content. Okay, so that's sort of the argument. But here's why I think that's actually not that at all, why it's different. Right. It's one thing if you're on, let's say, OpenAI and ChatGPT and you figure out how to jailbreak it, or to be honest, there's tons of open source models out there where you could basically generate anything with them. So it's not like it's impossible to do this. The pen exists. There's no putting the pen back in the bottle. There's open source models out there. People can do crazy things, whatever. That stuff exists. What I think this is different is, number one, this is directly attached to a social media. So like the purpose of this is to mass exposure and put it out publicly on the internet. It's not like you generated it on your profile and you saw what you generated. It's literally the purpose is to put it out there. So I think that makes it fundamentally different, right? And then number two, I don't think beyond guardrails, I 100% agree. We should have guardrails, of course. I mean, everyone agrees. You don't want to see any of this crap. Like the trend I think that really spurred this is like for the last couple of weeks, if you go into the comments on like any X post, basically it'd be like a picture of like a bunch of senators or whatever doing something, right? It's like all of the controversies we've had over the last month. And then people in the comments are like, oh, put that senator in a bikini or whatever. Like, that's just like at Grok, do that. And like, come on. Like, so first of all, that's like ridiculous, gross. Nobody wants to see that. It's a horrible trend, whatever. Maybe people think it's funny. I don't know. But regardless, beyond just having the guardrails to stop that, obviously stop like a lot of things, I think when Grok's image generation model came out, it went very hard in the very opposite direction, which was Elon Musk literally promoting a button on there that was like spicy mode. If you generate an image, enable spicy mode, and it literally would just generate explicit images. Like there's a button to do that built into it. And so I think like that should be removed. This should be removed where you build into this like feedback loop. Everything should be locked down. I don't know. I just think it's beyond just like, oh, we should have like reasonable guardrails. It was like we literally, beyond just making it like bland, we literally had a button to create what you literally don't want to create. And then once you stick that into social media, it obviously gets so much worse. So anyways, yeah, guardrails up. I think the pressure that Grok is getting and XAI is getting from a lot of different countries, like I'm usually very anti-regulation. I just want things to naturally go out, people to use them. Because I believe, not because I don't like, let's say, regulation or laws. I just believe that we already have all the existing legal framework to address a lot of this stuff, right? Like if you make illegal content, you make illegal content. Whether you use anything or an AI model, it's illegal. There's laws for that. So I feel like that's kind of there. But I think beyond that, a lot of the pressure they're getting is very warranted, and I hope they make some changes to just clean up the model. I mean, like I would love for it to be a useful tool in the world I could recommend to people. Definitely can't do it in its current state. So hopefully,
I mean, and that's the thing. And just to wrap it on this, I love this idea, folks, that when we see these headlines, that we actually think through, like, there's somebody making these decisions. Are they just a bad person? I mean, maybe, right? But there's also like, or are they just trying to make money? Maybe. But let's also remember sort of like, okay, what does this mean for a free speech issue? And then we make our decisions, which can still be, no, hell no. Like there's certain times where free speech should not be sort of like as open as it is. And in my opinion, that's in this particular case. But listen, folks, keep on listening, leave comments, everything else. Like we love hearing from you guys. By the way, Jaeden, we are so close to 150 ratings reviews. Guys, if you can leave us a rating and review and we can hit 150, we are going to be over the moon. So that would be amazing. Otherwise, we will see you in the next episode.